Hi guys, so before we get into it, a very quick disclaimer that there will be some spoilers today, but I will at least try and skirt around some of the late game twists. So after covering All the Colours of the Dark, I decided to stay with Italian cinema but move to a more modern film this time. This was another recommendation by my good friend Mr. Adrian Smith, who is also a long-time subscriber. I'd never heard of this film, which is surprising to me. It was directed by a guy called Federico Zampaglione. You might remember him from such films as Dreamhouse Nightmare and Tulpa Demon of Desire. I'm only going to name one actor who's in this, and that would be the lead actress Lauren LaVera. She is currently enjoying great fame and attention for her long-running role in the Terrifier franchise. And as always, when you are the leading face in such a series, you will tend to get lots of opportunities in other standalone films. This is currently a privilege that Mrs. LaVera is enjoying a lot, I imagine. Although I would say that The Well is better than both of her Terrifier movies, and I say that as somebody who actually enjoys the antics of Art the Clown. So this film is about a young American woman who travels to Italy. You know what, there should be like it should be its own subgenre. Americans just going and dying in foreign lands. They could call it the Yanks Die Abroad subgenre. So anyway, this woman Lisa, she restores paintings for a living. That's her business, or at least it's her father's business, and she's just involved in it. But she takes this commission to go and stay on this Italian estate. I don't think we find out whereabouts in Italy this is set, but it doesn't matter. And she's going to restore this painting in this big fancy house. It's a very large painting, and it's going to take her quite a few weeks to do this. But she starts experiencing hallucinations and dreams, and she wants to leave and go back to America, actually, and just cancel the contract, but the lady of the manor won't let her. She threatens to sue her and crash her business if she tries to leave before the work's done. So Lisa has no choice, seemingly, but to just crack on and make the best of it. But in the meantime, she's getting very, very freaked out. She kind of suspects that there's some deep evil within this painting. Now, there's an alternate plot that's running parallel to this one. So there's these three tourists who have turned up in the area. They might not be tourists, actually. They might be like eco-warriors. They briefly cross paths with Lisa at the start of the movie, and then they all go their separate ways. But these three people, they get abducted very early on. They're literally plucked from their tents in the middle of the night, and they're dropped into this circular room with jail cells around the outside, and there's a well in the middle of the room, hence the title. And throughout the story, we keep going back to this room, and every now and again somebody will be pulled out of their jail cell and just thrown down the well as food for the creature at the bottom of the well. So there's dual threads going on here, and the skill of this movie is that both plot lines are extremely satisfying. It's not that one is better than the other, they're both extremely good. And I think for a newbie to horror, this would be a good movie to test out what sort of horror you're into, because the Lisa painting plotline is very supernatural in nature. It's kind of like a slow drip feed of atmosphere. And the stuff in the well room, if you want to call it that, is full of like gory, schlocky stuff. It's all nightmare and death. But both storylines are very, very good. And eventually, of course, they do converge later in the movie. As a little aside, I do think they've missed a little bit of a trick with the title for this one. I think they should have called it The Portrait rather than The Well, because The Portrait is the crux of the whole storyline, really, whereas The Well is just a chute for bodies to fall down. It's got no mystical powers or anything like that. Although I suppose The Well sounds a little bit more foreboding as a title, whereas The Portrait could potentially make it just sound like an 18th century period piece. You know what, just keep it as The Well, it's fine. The thing you're likely to remember the most from this movie is the jailer of the well room. I'll call him the well warden, just for ease of reference, but this guy was freaky as. And I think the reason why is that it's very difficult to get a handle on what he's about. So he walks around doing this weird thing with his cheeks. It's like... It's constantly doing that, and I'm thinking, okay, so is this like a mentally challenged person, or is it an ogre, or is it like a man possessed by a demon, maybe, and he's just not comfortable in the meat suit somehow? I had no idea, but that's what made it scary. It reminded me of the villain from Jack and the Beanstalk, the giant from that. I could just imagine the characters in this film trying to creep past this guy when he's asleep, and then spotting like a golden harp in the corner and some magic beans. If they ever make a Jack and the Beanstalk horror movie, and who knows, because they've already made like a Mickey Mouse horror movie and a Winnie the Pooh horror movie. I will not be covering those, by the way. But if they ever made a Jack and the Beanstalk one, I think they should cast the guy from The Well. It really might work if they did. Now, when it comes to the creature at the bottom of the well, again, really effective creature design. If I had to describe it to you, I'd say that it's like a cross between the Thing from Pan's Labyrinth with the eyes and Mason Verger from Hannibal. That's the juxtaposition that I'm going for. But what I really like about this movie is the fact that we see way more of the well warden than we do the monster in the well. And the reason why this is noteworthy is because when you think about it from the perspective of the actual story, the creature at the bottom of the well is the big bad, the big boss, the main reason why we're here, the daddy, the granddaddy of the whole thing. Whereas the well warden is just a guard, he's just hired help, he's nobody really, and yet we spend way more time seeing the characters battling the well warden than we do the creature at the bottom of the well, and I really like that. It just makes the story feel very natural. It's a good example of what I would call incidental horror, which is often the best type of horror. A poorer writer might have tried to manufacture it so that the characters end up all at the bottom of the well but alive and able to run around some maze like they're in the Minotaur fable or something like that, but I think that would have made for a much poorer movie. Also some really good gore in this, so there's not that many kills, I'd say. They're certainly not that creative, and yet the blood and guts that you do see looks damn good in this. I don't know why, and you can tell the director's got confidence in it because he lets the camera linger on the kills as they're happening. I think it's just the Italian way of doing movies. They're just better at it than everyone else in the world, I think. Now, when it comes to the painting side of the movie, if you don't know what painting restoration involves, it seems to me that it's just sort of brushing away at the painting over and over again until all the dust and grime is cleared so that you can actually see what the picture is. So throughout this film, we're slowly getting to see what is in this portrait, and you just know it's going to be some kind of horrible picture. For a while, I thought it was going to turn out to be Vigo the Carpathian. I thought this was going to turn out to be the Ghostbusters 2 spin-off that I never knew I needed. But no, it's not Vigo under there. It's not just one person either. In fact, I'm not going to tell you what's in the picture. I'll let you discover that for yourself. I will tell you one little bit, though, just as a taster. So on one side of the picture, in the background, you can just make out this, like, bold man-child. And this is unsettling because he's appeared in one of Lisa's dreams prior to popping up in the painting, which I just found really unnerving. In terms of negatives, I can only really think of one, and that's the fact that we don't get to see a lot of Italy, and I would have liked to have done, especially in the first act of the film. If you'd have told me that this was not shot in Italy, I would have believed you no problem on the evidence presented, but apparently it was filmed in Italy, not that you can tell. I mean, most of this film takes place in the large house, and that's fair enough, but early on in the piece, I think there was plenty of opportunity to show us something of Italy. You know, if you set a film in rural Italia, I'd like to see some of it, you know, because it's a beautiful place. Although I've probably just been spoiled a bit recently because I watched The Godfather again over Christmas, but at the start of this film, all we see really when Lisa arrives in the country is her on a coach, and then we switch to a misty bus stop at night at the bottom of a lane, and then we're pretty much in the house for the rest of the thing. But I can't really think of too much else that bugs me about this. Once you get to the final few scenes of the movie, there are a few clear influences on this film, I think, which are a little bit unsatisfying in my opinion. So the finale to this definitely cribs a little bit from the film Ready or Not with Samara Weaving, and I caught more than a little whiff of TV shows like Vampire Diaries and Supernatural, but it was quite a fleeting feeling from what I can remember. And this is all a matter of instinct and feel anyway. When it comes to the actual content of the final act in this film, it's all really good. There's some good twist and great excitement. There's one scene that got me really emotional actually, and it only involves a side character, but I could feel myself welling up at what was happening. It's really great drama. I think if you've seen the film, you'll know what scene that I'm talking about. There's also a great epilogue to this. I can't remember if you have to watch the credits first, so just try and bear in mind, or try and remember that it's there, because watching this epilogue, it really made me sort of question some of the things I'd seen earlier on in the film, some of the character decisions as well. I thought it was a great little addition to the story, actually. So overall, I can't recommend this film highly enough. It's genuinely really, really good. Another fantastic recommendation from Adrian. And I know I'm always going to get something good from Adrian. Whenever he recommends a film, I know it's going to be at least a 1.5 out of 5. No, I'm just kidding. At least a 3 out of 5, I'd say. I don't have a copy of this movie to show you. I watched it on Amazon Prime for free, or at least it's free if you have a subscription, so check it out on there. But even if you have to shell out a few quid to watch this, I would say that it's worth it. Right, let's get to the bag of terror and find out how we're going to score this thing. We're still on axes because I've got another 23 subscribers to get to 1,000, and then I'm going to switch to carving knives, which is going to be really novel for me because I'm getting sick of these axes at this point. But anyway, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5 bloody axes out of 5. A really, really good score. This was a terrific movie. I don't think it's quite worthy of the full 5 out of 5, but still, I'm really glad that I watched it. Right, before we go today, a very quick reading update. So, as I said in my previous video, I've been reading this Aliens Omnibus Volume 1, which has 3 novels in the same book. It's a very thick book when you put all 3 together, and it works brilliantly as a trilogy. These 3 stories follow on from each other seamlessly. It's a fantastic experience, this. If you like the Aliens franchise and you've never read any of these, get on it, because it's really, really fab. I wouldn't say that any of the individual books are 5 out of 5 worthy, but the overall trilogy together in the 1 volume probably is a 5 out of 5 read for me. This was a genuinely great time. But anyway, I'm now moving on to something else, and I have just started reading The Gunslinger by Stephen King. Yeah, I'm checking out the Dark Tower franchise, albeit I'm not planning to read them all back to back, and I don't know if that's going to be a problem, because I'm reading these King books in the order that he released all of his books way back when. And I think he left considerable gaps between the Dark Tower books. So I don't know if it's going to be an issue, the fact that I'm going to just read this one and then read a bunch of other books before I read part 2. But we'll see how it goes. But for now, that's it. Thank you for joining me for my review of The Well. My next video is going to be an interesting one, because it's going to be a video where I list 20 movies for a particular reason that I'll keep secret for now, just to add a bit of suspense, but it's not a ranking. All will be revealed next time. Bye bye.